told how to be women in other countries. And so I know about my country. And when I went to the UK for 2 years, the, the things that women were fighting for there, like equal pay rights, we had more basic things that we had to fight for. We still are, like child marriage or education for women is still a big problem in India. I'm really interested in knowing that what's happening in other cultures, in other countries around the world, um, just to, have an overlook and to compare, I think. Yeah. So I don't know. I think we can narrate our personal stories if we have, um, like something very something that happens to all women. We all have periods, and I remember that when I was a little girl. I think when I was 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, my mother had a packet of sanitary napkins in the washroom, and I asked her, what those were and how do you use them. And she kind of snapped back at me and she asked me to just go away. So we can't talk about periods here very openly. If I go to buy a packet of sanitary napkins or tampons, then the shopkeeper is going to wrap it up in in a newspaper or in a black polythene, so that people can't see that I'm carrying something like that. So yeah, I think I've started now. So how is something so basic in other people's country? I'm really interested in knowing about that.
I think that I wanted to say that a very interesting topic to start. I think the period, because I think something that has women, we all experience that. So I wanted to ask you, what is the meaning of the period in India? Why is something that must be hide, or why is
Basically, we are supposed to hide them because, according to Hinduism and Hindu mythology, women are cursed, and that is why we have periods. So there is a whole story behind why women are cursed, and funny thing is that we're not cursed because we did something. We are cursed because I don't know if you know Greek mythology. There is Zeus, I think, who is the god of thunder and rain, and he's the god. He's the king of gods. The same way we have Indra in our Hindu mythology, who is the king of God, and he is the god of thunder and rain. So this man, this god, he kills a demon who's half Brahmin. And to give you a context, we have 4 castes, and the highest one is the Brahmin caste or the priest. Then we have Kshatriyas or the warriors. The third caste is the merchant, the tradesmen. And the fourth caste is the lowest caste, people who basically do the cleaning stuff and things like that. So when Indra kills this demon, he's actually half Brahmin and half demon. So he's cursed because he kills a Brahmin basically. And that curse is divided into 4 um, 4 things: ocean, earth, trees, and women. So when he kills the demon, a splash, a drop of blood, it gets on women as well, and that's why women are cursed. So, and these stories, they're actually still living, because these stories we tell ourselves every year. For example, the most important Hindu festival of Diwali, the festival of lights, like you have Christmas. It's equivalent to Christmas here in India. So every year we keep telling us the same story behind Diwali of these this hero called Ram and his wife Sita. And so, for us, these characters are real. For us, these characters are still living. And this has really impacted the image of a Hindu woman or an Indian woman today as well. So yeah.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, how do you think those stories kept on living? What was the thing that made them always?
Um,
Because I
these
think
stories,
every country, every culture has their own stories, like those myths, and at some point people base themselves and their way of living on those stories. But then I think it kind of vanishes away. And it's interesting that it's still very present there.
I think it has to do a lot of with the faith of people in Hindu religion. Plus, if I tell you about the historical context of how the Hindu religion was formed, it's very interesting because Hinduism was a lifestyle. It was not a religion, you know, because it's a way of living, basically. If you look at it, everyday rituals, for example, we still have these beliefs or superstition. I don't know, they're not superstitions, but people have a lot of belief in them. Like Tuesdays, people don't have meat, they don't cut their nails, they don't cut their hair. On Thursdays, you can't wash your hair. And so this is Hinduism every day. And yoga, for example, yoga is everywhere. It is part of Hinduism. It is how to live. So basically, everybody in those times, they used to practice yoga. But we have a lot of gods, and we had a lot of different believers of different gods. So some people like believed Vishnu, for example. Other people believed Shiv. And when the Mughals came, the Muslim rulers came to India, then to form an identity of their own, Hindus started coming together, like different believers of, because basically the ritualistic practices are kind of similar. And then when the British came with Christianity, everything in our religion, which we were really proud of, like Kama Sutra, for example, now we look down upon something like Kama Sutra, which is celebrated all over the world. And I think that is why Hinduism is still living, because people have this very strong faith in this religion. And it might be something difficult for Western people to understand. But when I went to the West, when I went to the UK, I didn't see a lot of people going to the church, or praying or believing in God generally. Whereas in India, people have this unshattering faith in God. And that is why I see that every household and everybody has this story of their own story of little miracles, happening to them. I don't believe that God makes them happen. I just believe that faith basically makes these miracles happen. That's my take on it. Yeah.
Hi, Somya, thank you for having us all here, and it's super lovely to connect and talk about these things across culture. And one thing I'm just going to speak briefly now, but I have obviously a lot of thoughts listening to you guys already. It's interesting that we start with, you're right, Bruna? Yeah, it's like lovely and emotional. We were talking about, I talked to Bruna and Natasha the other day that, you know, this is like a really emotional time. I feel like I just start crying every time I come on a Zoom call and see other people. It's interesting that we start with the topic of periods and that it was mentioned by both you and Natasha as a given that this is something that all women experience. And I just want to point out that something that has evolved in my feminism, and as you know, Somya, I'm from New Zealand. Well, I grew up in New Zealand and I spent a lot of time living in the United States, and now I live in Mexico. So I've experienced very different feminisms. I don't believe that there is feminism like one, right? I think there are feminisms. And also women's movements, like in the US, there's also the Black women's womenism, which is, you know, different to white women's feminism and stuff. So I think that it's like interesting to see how many different representations of feminism and this kind of theory there are globally. But one thing that has shifted in mine is the biological perception of womanhood. And I think that's something that's very interesting in US and Western feminism is this recent inclusion, or I mean, it sounds awful to say a recent inclusion, but that trans women are included in our feminism, and that there's also a recognition that not all women, cis or trans, experience getting their period. So I just wanted to say that at this point, as we're having this discussion, it's really, really just very interesting to me to hear that, because if I was having this discussion in a US context, that sort of thought about periods wouldn't necessarily be stated, because it's something that has kind of shifted in the Western feminism. And I think that's an interesting point of also cultural comparison. But yeah, I think that it's sort of also still interesting that even in New Zealand and the US, periods are considered a sort of taboo. Like it's still something that, you know, I mean, it's not a taboo, but it's still something that people have a lot of discomfort discussing. And one of the new things, and as I was saying, there's so many different feminism, and ecofeminism is the reduction of waste, you know, and products that are detrimental to the environment. So for example, sanitary napkins are considered to be quite wasteful products. So there's a lot of emphasis on, you know, things like eco cups. I don't know how many of y'all use one of those slightly difficult contraptions. Yeah, but it's something that I made a committed decision to switch to. And I gotta say, it's like a very interesting experience of getting very intimate with your own biology and the, you know, stuff. I mean, God, look, I'm getting awkward. Isn't that interesting, Somya? I'm starting to feel like awkward talking about this. So yeah, what a great topic. I just think it's interesting. I just wanted to point out, you know, those kind of different variations across different interpretations of feminism.
Periods are very personal, and you know, when you're telling somebody about your own periods, then it's like an inclusion in your, it's an inclusion in secrecy. You know what I mean? That especially men, when we talk to our brothers or our fathers about something like that, then it's basically like including them in our secret, because I remember when I got my first periods. First, I did not know about periods at all. And I think I was 10 or 11 years old. And for 2 days, I didn't even know that I was having my periods. I thought that probably I'm hurt somewhere down there. And I went to my mother and I said, there's something, happening. And I did not have the words to explain it to her. And my grandmother and my mother took me to a separate room, and they kind of told me that they use the word menses and menstruation, and it was very it was a very weird and awkward moment for me as well. It was like a shock that I'm bleeding, and because I thought probably I'm hurt.
I think that that is very interesting, and it's curious that you said the word secret, because now connecting that to what they were saying before about the eco cup, I also have a cup, and I think it was from the point that I got the cup and that I had to spend that time cleaning the cup, and you actually have to see the fluids that go out from your vagina,
Right.
and there you have your moment, it's like a very intimate moment, kind of more like kind of the secret you're talking about, uh, although on a different level. But I think it's interesting because you can develop a little that intimacy with yourself when you do that thing with a cup, and I think you can do it with in any other way. There's a lot of ways to do that. I think the cup is one of those. That's why I was saying. But it's interesting that you kind of had that by yourself, and you didn't even know what you were experiencing.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
For
So
me, you can talk. Sorry.
you go on. I was
Uh,
just saying that we don't, women in India, most of the women in India, they don't even get pads to use. So eco cups are far,
yeah,
far
yeah,
away.
yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about this, like when Ruby was talking, that we are in two different moments so far away. Like
Yeah,
I use my Eco Cup uh, more or less for 5 years, and when I discovered it uh, through a friend, was really a big change in my life, and like I could change my own perception of my menstruation and my period, and like for the first time I saw my blood, and I realized that it wasn't not even close uh, to the image that I used to have through the tampons and stuff, because the blood is completely different when it's on your cup, and it's very sad to hear that and to get to know like your history, or you saying another women's history about how they don't know how to, or they cannot talk about this openly. And I think at least in Brazil we moved on a bit on this topic, like women get together to talk about this, like women who have like periods and stuff. Um, but and the society is can handle better now, but as at least I don't know. It's for me cross my heart, to listen to this kind of histories.
it's worse than what I'm telling you, because I know the princess of Nepal, the former princess of Nepal. She's a married woman now, and she's got sons. One is, I think, 21 or something, and the other one is a teenager. And this woman, royal people are well educated, forward thinking people. And I think her mother, till the time she was in her mother's home, whenever she used to get her periods, she used to have a separate room, and her servant used to take her food from the backside to give her her food, and she had to wash the utensils herself. And this still happens today. You're not allowed to mingle in the society, you're not allowed to go to the kitchen, you're supposed to be sleeping on the floor. And having periods is, for people like us, I think, when we are talking about feminism, um, feminism in India is based on class. I have been to an English medium school. I know how to read and write and speak in English. So I have this whole world open to me, and that is why I can communicate with you. But somebody who can't, who doesn't know English, they're not open to these topics. They're just open to very small range of education, which is very close to our religious beliefs. And hence, it is difficult for these women to move forward. Well, in the villages, and most of the India is village. Most of our population is very poor, you know. I think girls, after getting their periods, they're not allowed to go to school because their parents, they start getting worried that, what if something wrong happens to her? And that is why we have so many child marriages still happening in India.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the economic and social issue, because I think it's very connected to everything. Even
Yeah,
me, that I come from a Western country, from Portugal, um, I come from a kind of religious family, a Catholic family, and I had kind of the same issues that you had with your family, about talking with my father and my cousins, men cousins, uh, and I had the same problems, and it is a social issue as well. It is a matter of religion too, because it is a taboo, and it still is, and I think it will continue to be. Uh, the fact that women still get married in a white dress, that is also a very, like, a very present statement
that
about
is
that.
very interesting because women in India get married in red. And the reason that they wear red is because after marriage, a woman, till the time their husband are alive, they wear red or green, because these, especially red, and they have this, I don't know if you've noticed, they have this red powdery thing in the parting of
Mm.
their head, and a dot here. So this actually is for sexual attraction. It has nothing to do with virginity, or, I mean, yeah, virginity is part of it, but it is, women basically dress up so much in India, um, because they have to keep their men sexually attracted to them. Plus, it is kind of praying for their long lives. So, everything in our religion basically revolves around the long life of a man, either a brother, um, your husband, your son. Especially these three men in our lives are very important. We had this very old text, scripture, a Hindu scripture, which was basically the law of Hinduism in those times, in the Vedic times, 2000 years old, I think. And it says that women are not supposed to be independent. Women are not capable of being independent. And so you should tie them up in the household work. And first, a woman is a responsibility of her father, then her husband, and then she lives on the charity of a son. Hence, a male child is very important in, at least in our culture, because if you don't have a male child, you will not attain um, moksha. You understand? I don't know if you've come across the word moksha. Um, Liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth, which should be the ultimate goal of being a human.
It's super interesting to talk about class and religion as well in relation to these topics. As I mentioned in the call that we had, the previous call that we had, that I've moved, from New Zealand, the US to Mexico. And I think that here in Mexico, like class also plays a very, very big role in women's relationship to feminism. And I think it's also super interesting to think about, like, in general, in the past, Western feminism, European feminism, New Zealand feminism was a middle class movement. The suffragette movement, like a lot of the women involved were middle class. And, when Black feminism started coming to the forefront of the feminist movement in like the 70s and 80s in the US, one of the things that a lot of Black feminists were saying was white women are fighting to work and Black women are fighting to not work, to spend time with their families. That Black women had traditionally had roles in household work, like domestic work, such as nannies and cleaners and that kind of thing. So they were like, you white ladies can go work, but we don't want to. We want to spend time with our own, we want to raise our own children, was one of the big sort of messages of the Black feminist movement. And here in Mexico, I've noticed also it's a very class related issue. My middle class, upper middle class, I don't have any upper class, unfortunately, friends, but my middle class and upper middle class friends have definitely a lot more engagement with feminism than working class friends. And the working class also, it's something to consider that they are working as well. So that's like, and working a lot. So, their level of engagement is based, you might include education, but also the fact that, and that survival instinct, that's also like perhaps not the biggest priority, as is feeding your family. In fact, a woman who was cleaning in a building that I used to work last year, Norma, she became a good friend of mine, and I noticed that she's a very working class Mexican woman. Her father left the family when she was young. She started working when she was 12 years old. So she's like worked her entire life, and she didn't go to high school, basically. She is one of the most like feminist thinking women I've ever met. Like, she is very, very brilliant. She's very an intelligent woman, and a lot of the stuff that she was saying is very in line with a like feminist philosophy that I've read in books or whatever, but like, she's not had that education. She's not read that theory in a book. You know what I mean? But it's just like her way of thinking. And I was just really inspired talking to her. I was like, I wish that there was a book of your feminist philosophy, because it's so fucking hell, there's someone at my door and they won't stop ringing the bell. I'm gonna have to go check who it is. But yes, sorry, I just wanted to say that, Norma, supreme feminist mastermind, and it's very unfortunate that not many people know her personal feminist philosophy.
I think the problem in India is more about caste and not class. You understand? Because we still can't marry interclass, like a higher class person, a caste person cannot marry the lower caste person. It happens now, but it is still very difficult and rare to have two intercaste marriages. So
What do you mean by caste? I don't know the meaning of the word.
caste, we've got four castes in Hinduism. The upper caste is the Brahmin caste or the priestly caste. Uh, then the second caste is Kshatriya, the warrior caste. The third caste is merchants and tradesmen, you know, shopkeepers and farmers and people like that. And the fourth caste is the people who do blue collared jobs. I'll give you an example of this. Few days back, our water motor was broken. So we called a plumber to show him the motor, and it turned out that uh, a toilet seat was broken. That is why it was acting funny. So when I asked him to fix the toilet seat, he would not do that because it is not his job. It is not, according to his caste, he cannot touch toilets. He cannot clean toilets. So yeah, caste system is a big problem in India. If you're from a low, so basically everybody who's working for the um, the cleaning staff, you know, the cleaning staff is actually lower caste, the lowest caste of all, and it is still there. People who come to say wash our utensils, they will not wash our toilets. For our toilets to be cleaned, other people come.
Okay. So it is connected to class, no, in a way, because it is very connected to the idea of a job, no? It's like it
It
depends
is
on the type of job you have.
no, it is connected to the caste. So you will get the job according to the caste. It's not
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How they?
And,
I'm sorry. You can keep
no,
going.
no, no.
Keep going.
No, I was just going to ask what was the perception of feminism in these different castes, but
um, I think you were going to ask me something, Natasha, as well.
I just wanted to know if how, like, who decide the castes, or if you were just born in the caste and you stay there the whole life. There's no ascension because if you can't mix it, so it's just basically a way to really keep the society with these layers of status
connected
like.
to our name, our surnames. So the caste that we are born under is basically determined by our surname, our father's, you know, name. And we might rise above it in the class system, but we will stay in the caste system if we do not marry somebody higher, you know, especially women. Well, if we don't marry somebody who's on a higher caste. And how feminism plays. Feminism is very funny in India because, like I said, I am an educated woman, so I can talk about these things very openly. Whereas somebody who is not educated, um, most women in India are illiterate. And I think when foreigners, people from the West come to India and they see that we still have cleaning staff, they get very surprised. But I think they need to understand that India is a very poor country, and when most people are illiterate, these people also need employment. And when women come and work for us, I think it is a way for them to get empowered because women were not allowed to work at all. And now, when these women have started coming out of their homes and they've started working and earning money for, I don't know, because most of the things in India, they're still done by hand. If they're cleaning utensils, for example, and we are paying them, then they use, most of the women, they get empowered financially, which is very important, I think, today. And like the people who come and work for my family, most of the women, they educate their children, and this is the only way out for them, out of poverty. So it is very important, I feel. And people in the West, they kind of see it in a very bad manner, I think.
It's interesting you say that, Somya, because I think that actually in the West, the middle class are very kind of embarrassed by this kind of thing, but rich people all have a full staff. And I remember that actually there's a writer, Jonathan Franzen. I don't know if you guys know him, terrible human being. Anyway, very, very wealthy, best-selling author. And he did an interview where he was sort of talking about his Guatemalan cleaning woman, and it was sort of very interesting how that was received publicly. He's an American, this was in the US, that people were kind of like, yeah, like you said, like the reaction was very uncomfortable. But when you live, I don't know about, I think it's the same in Brazil. In Mexico, it's very common for middle-class families to have cleaning staff. Usually it's like you say, Somya, that it's women who do the job to feed their families. And actually Norma, the woman I was talking about before, who's worked since she was 12, who did not go to high school, she's educating her sons, like she was telling me when we were having this conversation that she's like teaching her sons to do all of these household chores, like cooking and cleaning. And she actually like divorced her husband. She's like a very cool lady. And she was like, I'm not fucking taking care of this man, like she's like, I'm not gonna clean all day and then go home and clean more. So she divorced her husband a long time ago, and she's like raised her sons to clean and cook so that when she gets home from work, she doesn't have to do the same job at home. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a very, very, very interesting point that, I think Westerners are very uncomfortable when they go to somewhere like India or Mexico, possibly Brazil. It's like, these people have cleaners, that's so weird. But the reality is that in the US, everybody in the top 10% has a staff too. They just don't, talk about it publicly.
The difference between India and countries like the US and the UK is that the staff is immigrant staff. Basically, we people are like, I think somebody like me would not be working cleaning for other people because I fall in that class system now. And if I do that for somebody else, it is going to affect my father's reputation, my family's reputation, which is something very important in India. But the same people, it was very funny for me to see people, the Indians in the UK, they were doing they were doing all sort of jobs. It was just an observation. I'm not judging them in any way, but I just felt that they don't do the same things at home and they are ready to do it in a Western country. Um, yeah, and the thing about divorce rate in India is very low, very, very low if you compare it to the Western countries. Because, and again, religion plays a big role here because I don't know if you saw this picture that I did today. Um, so if you can see this woman, she is joining her hands like this, and her husband is basically blessing her. So husbands are gods. They're not like gods, they are gods. So every year, once a year, well, there are a lot of fasting rituals that happen in India, and there is one particular ritual that kind of makes me a bit angry as well. It is a woman has to fast for the whole day, and she can't even drink water. So she wakes up uh, at 4 o'clock in the morning before the sun rises. She eats the traditional things for that day until the time the moon does not come out. And every time on that day, the moon is late. Every time. So till the time the moon does not come out, she can't have food. So the whole day she's actually praying for her husband's long life. Your husband's long life is a very important, um, I don't know, thing in India because husbands are basically providers, food providers, breadwinners. And I see my mother, and I see the women who come and work for us. My mom's name is Nina, and I don't know who she is. I know she's my mother. I know she is my father's um, wife. I know her as a daughter. But other than these roles, I don't know who she is. So when these women come and work for us, I feel giving them money and empowering them, it is, the right thing to do. It is not something we should look down upon because they are financially backing their own selves. But when you spoke about divorce, I wanted to share another incident. The woman who is working for us at the moment, one of her eye, she's blind from one of her eye. Her husband hit her a few years back and she got blind. It hurt her eye. And she didn't divorce her husband because no matter what happens, you have to smile and bend over in front of your husbands. There is no other way. With all this virus thing happening these days, whenever she comes in, I ask her to take off her bangles before she starts working, because they're dirty, and sometimes she's kneading the dough for us or chopping the vegetables. She would not do that because if she does that, it is going to, well, religiously, she can't do that because till the time your husband does not die, you cannot take off your bangles. So it is difficult for these, I don't know, these women to understand the gravity of other things outside the culture, things that might, I don't know, affect their health or their, I don't know. So like she getting beaten up. So yeah, that's the take on marriage in India.
Wow, that's insane.
I know.
Oh,
I can let you know.
oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. The fact that the woman basically exists for the man is something that's really, really serious. That the thing you were saying about you don't know who your mom is, like as a woman, who she is, what are her dreams, what she would like to to study or to, I don't know, like if she can even imagine about doing something, or things that is for us, it's for the Western, I think it's just a very basic thing, no, like to have the right to dream,
Yeah.
or to, I don't know, like to be able to do the things you want to do, and to know yourself, um, and to understand yourself more than just these these social functions, like being a wife or being a mom, or
Yeah.
and it's like, so it's such a different reality that it's really difficult to
Imagine.
understand that. Yeah, like to imagine that this is your daily life, like
Yeah. When I started off with, when I, after school, when people used to ask me, what am I going to do now? So I was very clear on the thing that I'm going to be doing fine art. And when I used to tell people, there was this man from a university, a well known university in India, and he was heading the engineering department. And he was teaching in a co-ed university, so both boys and girls were studying in the university. And said, oh, fine art is a wonderful subject for a woman to study, implying that I basically have to get married, and it's going to it's something that I'll just pass my time with. And then after 2 years of a very difficult time in India, when I went to the UK, um, a few of my father's friends, they commented that, why are you sending a girl? Why are you investing in a girl's education, sending her to the UK to study, and that to a subject like fine art? So, you can understand that how difficult it was for me to pursue something like this and then talk about these topics. I still can't speak very openly in the society about what I'm doing because people are actually expecting me to paint pretty pictures like landscapes or flowers. This is what they expect.
And what was the opinion of your father? What I mean is, like, what did he answer when people told him that you were going away and all of that? Because
Well,
it's
decided, my father decided that he's going to send me. And of course, studying abroad, especially countries like UK and USA, it is very expensive for us Indians. I think you look at it in euros and in pounds. So it was 10,300 pounds, something like 10,000, yeah, something like that. 10,000 pounds or 13,000 pounds, I think so, something like that per year. And excluding the living costs, the accommodation was different and living was different. um, so it is very expensive, and people anyway don't want to invest in a subject like this for anybody, a girl or a boy. But when a girl goes out to study a subject like that, it is entirely a different matter. And I am very grateful to my father, who let me study abroad. And I remember when I was in the UK, I had a tutorial with this female tutor who said that I should rebel against my father, and because my father did not have money to invest in my masters anymore. So she said that I should rebel against my father and I just thought to myself that I can't do that. My father has done so much for me. And it was just
Of course.
completely something that I could not make her understand. I think in Western countries it is easier for people to cut family ties. I don't know. I'm just assuming. Whereas
I,
in a
sorry.
country, sorry, in a country like India, it is very difficult because the society kind of, you have to think about the society as well when you take a step.
Mm. It might not be the same thing, but I think at least in my context, the family is very important, and I also have to think about context because I was not born in Lisbon. I was born in a small island, in a very small village from the island, very far away from the continent. So I'm sure it is very different from the experience you've had, but it is also very, uh, you're just not as an individual. You are part of a society, a very small society that will observe every step you take and will comment everything you do, and I think that is also something. Yeah, it is different, but I think it happens also in Europe and everywhere. I think it has to do also with the, again, the religion, social issues, economical issues, and I think this conversation we are having, it's between people who are privileged enough to think about those things, to have time to think about those things, because I think that if you go to the lower classes, people are just, even if they follow those ideals, they probably don't know about the theory, like Ruby was saying, and I think, I don't know, we are talking and I'm just constantly reminding myself how privileged I am just for being able to talk about those things and knowing things and reading about theories, and and yeah, I don't know.
I wanted to ask Somya if when you were studying in the UK, um, did you ever thought about staying there? Like, not going to come back. I'll stay here and get my period in a cup, and
I can still get a period in a cup.
yeah, I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, I did, but then the immigration rules are very strict, so I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't stay there. Um, yeah, the only way for me to instantly get a visa was to get married, and I didn't find anyone.
I did it, yeah. And the other question is, how you think Indian people interpret the work, the artwork you do?
To be honest, they don't really like my work.
Mhm.
Um, because it is India. They want to see something more feminine, soft, traditional feminine. They want to see beautiful things like landscapes and flowers and portraits, and I'm not an artist for them. um, so when I start telling them about my work, like some time back, I was telling somebody, my father's friend asked me what was I doing, and I told him that I'm just trying out this thing where I want to give my audience a very submissive, effect when they walk into the room. They should be part of the artwork. And he said, I don't understand it. Why don't you draw birds and try tigers? And he started describing a tiger. So the other thing is, ever since I came back, one people were very excited for me to come back because I don't know, they thought that I felt like a superstar. Everybody wanted to know um, what how my experience was, and they wanted to know what is going to happen next here. And I did not want to do a job. I wanted to start, creating my work. Um, and so when people started asking me that what is my next step, and I told them that I wanted to have a studio and I wanted to start working. Um, so they started giving me advice. So the first advice was to become a primary school teacher, and I said no, because in India art is actually taken as a free period in school. So people who are not serious about art, or people who don't want to say study science or maths, they're going to take art as a subject. And I did not want to be a part to that because I worked very hard to reach where I did. It was social struggle for me to reach where I am today, and I was not going to waste my time with something like that. Then the second advice was they started getting I don't know how do you say that, they in India we have this concept of arranged marriage. We still have this concept. And they started bringing me contact of boys so that I could date them and, get married. Uh, it was very funny. And it was funny because they did not know anything about my work. They don't know about my philosophy. They don't know that I'm sitting here and this is the conversation that is taking place. They just came for like 2 hours to spend a day, and obviously when somebody comes to spend a day, you're not grumpy and you're not talking about periods and I don't know, stuff like that. And they instantly thought that I'm marriage material. um, and they started bringing these really reputed family names for me to get married. It was very horrifying.
So basically, these people you're saying is like your friends.
They're not my friends, they're my father's friends, family friends and neighbors. And so, yeah.
And the friends, like the woman friends you have at your age, like what are their ambitions or dreams?
I'll tell you, like, I was very weak when I was in school. And girls who were scoring 90%, 99%, they're married now at the age of 21, 22, and arranged marriages, more arranged marriages than love marriages. So in India, I think in the West, you just have marriage. In India, we have two kinds of marriages, arranged and love marriages. So most of the women are married, and it just, sometimes I compare myself and I kind of compare, I can't help but compare my achievements, um, and I just think that I did I have been educated enough by my father, and I'm still not able to do what I wanted to do coming back to India, because I have less opportunities, um, now, especially now. One, because I'm a woman. The other thing is because I studied abroad, so they wouldn't give me exhibition spaces or opportunities. Whenever I apply somewhere abroad, I always get the opportunity. But when I apply in my own country, I just don't get it.
I'd like to ask.
Same.
Sorry.
Sorry,
What,
I was just saying same. When I apply in New Zealand, it's like, whatever, you live in Mexico. You know, like, we don't want to have anything to do with you. You rejected us.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Somebody was speaking. Yeah. Somebody else was saying something.
Yeah, Mari.
I thought you couldn't hear me. And I would like to ask Somya if what would happen if she married someone in the UK? What would her family in India think? And if she stayed there, would it be okay?
Oh, yeah. My family is going to be completely fine with whoever I choose to marry. But yes, there are other restrictions, like caste is one restriction. I, now, this is white supremacy. This is where white supremacy plays out. I'm allowed to marry somebody abroad who's white, but I'm not allowed to marry beneath my caste. One, I can marry somebody from any religion which is connected to Hinduism. So, for say, I can marry a Buddhist person, I can marry a Sikh person. I'm half Sikh and half Hindu myself. I can marry a Jain person, but I cannot marry a Muslim person as well, because here the society comes into play. The other thing is that um, because if I marry a white person, say, my family is going to be fine about it. The society is going to act funny. Uh, and I've seen it because this has happened in my social circle, that how society treats, um, white people, especially in India. We still have that post-colonialism effect on us, where white people are superior and they're gods. So the society is going to say that I probably, I don't know how to say it. I enchanted, I don't know if I'm putting it right, but I enchanted a white man. This is how the society is going to look at it. My parents have absolutely no problem if I marry a white person or anybody from the religions I told you about, except Islam and Christian. If it's a white Christian, that is okay, but it should not be a brown Christian.
Could it damage your family, like socially speaking?
um, I don't know really, because this is something, it depends from person to person, if people are going to stay in touch with us or not after I marry somebody. Of course, if I marry a white person, everybody is going to be in touch with me. But if I marry a Muslim or a brown Christian, then I don't know. My reputation is going to be tarnished more than my family's reputation. And I think that is because after Hinduism, any religion which has come to India, or it has sprung from Hinduism, like Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, these three religions are actually part of Hinduism. So anybody who is, or even Islam, well, Islam is not part of Hinduism, but Islam and Christianity came from outside India, you know. Um, so anybody who's an Indian and who's a brown Christian or a Muslim, they are actually converted, and people started converting into these religions because they were of the lowest caste, and the lowest caste, they've had a very difficult time. Like, you see all this, you see how black people are being treated in the US and the UK or anywhere white. The same way these people, the lowest caste people, are being treated in India. Like I said, that man wouldn't touch the toilet and fix it because it is the job of the lowest caste person. So then caste also comes to play in religion here, especially if you're a brown Christian or a Muslim.
Somya, I wanted to ask, here in Mexico, I feel like there's some similarities, in terms of the class structure in relation to feminism and things like that. I live in Mexico City, and in Mexico City, it's kind of, especially in my community, like obviously I'm in an artistic community, and I think that many places in the world, the artistic communities tend to be also more progressive. So, sometimes it's easy to forget. Most of my friends are, artists, and they are in, open relationships. They're queer, they're trans, they, whatever. And it's sort of like, when you're in that community, it's kind of easy to like forget that the rest of the country has a lot more traditional sort of views and practices. I'm just wondering, like, I have seen in India that there are, progressive LGBTQ movements and, feminist groups and stuff like that. I was just wondering, like, how present that is, whether you are connected to any of those communities, if it's specific to different cities, what you've seen of that.
I come from a very small town, which is in the north. So basically, north is much behind from the rest of the country. So like New Delhi is quite close to where I live. It's 6-7 hours from here, but still, these things happen more in bigger cities than our small cities. But of course, I know what's happening in the country. Yeah, I think, yeah.
I was wondering just if your family is pressuring you to get married or something like that, since we're talking about that. Okay.
No, I don't know really, but then marriage comes before a woman's education. So every time I ask my family that I want to go for a master's, say, so the first thing that my father is going to say is that, but I have to look, I have to save for your marriage also, and stuff like that. So marriage comes first, and then we still have dowry. You know what is dowry?
No.
Basically, dowry is when you get married. So a woman gets, I don't know how to explain it. It is like getting married and paying for your own marriage. Like you go and you buy something. So you're getting, the groom, he's going to get that object also, and he's going to get the money also. The dowry is something like that.
Okay.
So, like my dowry, uh, in India, we are obsessed with jewelry and clothes. So I have my grandmother, she collected a lot of jewelry for me and my sister. And then there are clothes, like really expensive saris, even saris which are woven with gold thread. So these are the things that it depends from class to class, of course. But um, so these are the things which women get. Then money, and on top of that, if uh, the groom can ask anything from the bride's family. So a lot of time, grooms ask for cars and very expensive watches and stuff like that, you know. And then traditionally, when in an Indian wedding, all the expense has to be taken care of by the bride's family, not the groom's family. In a more progressive society, like, you know, in my family, when my cousin got married, everything was divided. But when we talk about, you know, lower middle class families and very religious families, then nothing is divided. All the expense has to be, um, you know, taken care of by the group, by the bride's family. And on top of that, we have to give a lot of gifts to the groom's other family members also, like the extended family also, and be they can't be cheap, you know, because you know what is conspicuous consumption, that they have to be of
Yeah.
of you have to show your status.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. It again has to do with that thing of taking care of the man and doing
So
everything for him to have like a long life, right? It's
yeah,
so
and
revolves around that.
there is this very funny thing that still happens in India, that if, you know, for example, I get married, and my if my parents come to my house, my husband's house, they can't even have a glass of water from there, because you're not supposed to take anything from the groom's family. That's the deal. So in India, I always feel that we don't have a house of our own. We don't have a roof of our own. It is first your father's house and then your husband's house. That's it. You and I'm just finding ways to have a house of my own, because I've seen, even if you are married for a very long time, you need to have some, and even if there's a lot of love and respect, you need to have some financial backing to have, you know, your to have that self-respect, to have the ability to turn back or to walk away whenever you can.
But do you think that there is any brighter side? You know, like do you have hope? Do you think the at least the higher classes in India can get to a point where feminism starts to be implemented, or I don't know.
I think it is the hope lies in the middle class families in India, because, like I said, conspicuous consumption at the moment, since we are all riding on this wave of white supremacy, like I said. So everything Western is basically superior. Everything, anybody who's white and whatever they does, it is superior than what we indigenous people do. So basically, the middle class people are following the Western people, you know, the way they dress up and cultural activities, especially my peer group, um, people from my peer group. And my take on that is that we should not forget our roots. We should not forget our own culture, our own, traditions. We should be modern and progressive, but and we should praise the other culture, like the white culture, the good things about the white culture, like women standing up for themselves and stuff like that. But we should not forget about our own culture. Our own culture has been very suppressive, not only suppressive, but after the British came, they started telling us that, your religion is bad. You people are basically illiterate, um, just apes, you know. So we have to revive our culture back as well in a good way. We can't go back to the old practices which have been very degrading to women. And that is why I feel that the youth, which is the middle class youth, is more important than the higher class people. That is because when you are on that level, you want to keep your traditions very close to yourself. Like I spoke about that Nepalese princess, who was still, I mean, this is the 20th century. I'm talking about this century. I'm talking about just a few years back before her mother died. So it is not something that happened in the previous century. It is still happening. So yeah, I just feel that hope is in the middle class society because they're struggling to educate themselves, whereas the upper class, they just have everything on the plate. Everything is already there for them. They don't have to think about how they're going to get their education. Like women in the higher classes, they are very well educated, but what are they doing with their degrees? They're not doing anything, basically. Because, say, if they want to open a, a fashion store or whatever, then their fathers or their husbands can do that for them. Whereas we have to think 100 times before we take such a venture, where the money is going to come from. And so, when everything is easily available, you don't have to think about other things. You just enjoy doing stuff without thinking about the wider, um, I don't know, the things in the culture.
Somya, I was going to ask you, because you mentioned just before when I was talking about that I have seen this progressive movement that you're in a small town in the north. Are you connected in a way to a network of people who are in, having the same thoughts as you?
Um, I am connected to very little people in India because, first of all, I was just when I started off my journey after school, I was living in different states, different cities in India, and I did not really connect to people who are from a higher class. I was living with either lower middle class families or lower class families. So like when I was living in Mumbai is one of the most populated cities on the planet. So when I was living there, I remember there were 2, 3 girls in one small room, and I was in that room, and I never in my life thought that I'm going to live like that, because being in a small city in India means that you have that privilege of having a big house and bungalow, and I've actually grown up on on a school campus that my grandfather established. My grandfather established a school very long time back, 60 years from now, I think. So I always had that privilege, that space. Whereas going to Mumbai, I was living in this tiny room with two, three other people, and so I connected to these kind of people. I did not connect to the LGBTQ, and I was really young at that time. So I think that is why I know more about the class system and the caste system than the other issues. I mean, I know some people from school who went up on to live in bigger cities like Bangalore and Mumbai, who are permanently settled there and who are quite active there. But personally, I've been in touch with such people, and that's how my view of feminism, that's how my view of feminism built, basically.
I think that's super valuable. Like, I think that, to exist in a bubble of, only like-minded people who have the same access to philosophy or whatever that you have can often be very alienating in a way. And as I was saying, like, I think that I learned so much more about feminism in Mexico from talking to women in different, from different backgrounds and from different parts of the country than just talking to people who are already in that kind of movement or whatever. I guess I was just curious, like, if there's like any kind of networks or like countrywide or something that it perhaps would be interesting to like tap into and see what other people are thinking about it.
There is so much going in India at the moment, um, especially before the virus breakout. Um, like we were there is another act that was being passed, which was on religious basis, and yeah, so I was more interested in that at that moment. I'm sorry, I wasn't really into I think nothing was happening at that time when I came back from the UK. Nothing related to LGBTQ was taking place. Um, yeah.
What was the app? Sorry, I missed what the app you were interested in.
Act called it was I forgot the name. I'm sorry. Uh, it was on the basis of religion, like all the Muslim people who have been living in India since the partition that took place in 1947 after the British left us. So they had to prove that they're Indians and they were living here since then. And the government was checking their documents, which was very unfair because India is a secular country, and and secularism is that you don't judge people by the religion. They have the freedom to their religion. So it was just for the Muslims. So the Buddhists, the Jains, or any other community was not being targeted. So it was quite, for me, I was very angry because I believe that you can't just judge people by their religion. But this has been given to us by the British, this feud between the two religions, because when the British were ruling over us, they could easily divide the Hindus and the Muslims. And today also, the missionaries which are in India, which are being operated by from Ireland, or from any other country, Western country, they actually pay Hindus or other people, poor people. They target poor people. They pay them to convert into Christians. They're going to, and this happens a lot in places like Mumbai, especially. So yeah, I think we've covered marriage and uh, periods.
I would like to ask you if you have like contact with other women artists from India, like even if they paint like birds. I don't know.
I have, because my first year I did in India, and you know, when I was in India, when I was doing my first year of university in India, it was a very difficult time for me, because women from that university, their end goal was to get married, and I knew that there's something beyond this. So when I was studying in India, we had a very traditional art school, like any other classroom. We had benches like this. We had rows of benches, and we did not have studios. We had a desk, and that's it. That was our work space. So the teacher used to come in, and he used to, give us the task for the day or whatever, and we had to do that for the whole day, and that's it. So it was like going to school. It was exactly like going to school. So we used to go there at 8 in the morning, and 2:30 the college used to get over, and after that we were not allowed to use the classrooms or anything. And we were not allowed to wear boys were not allowed to wear shorts. So you can imagine the limitations for women in the university, the dress code. And then personally, it was not just because women wanted to get married, but also because I started questioning. I started having these questions, that why does a woman has to hide her periods? If she's when we have our periods, we are not feeling well, and when we are not feeling well due to our periods, we can't just say that, oh, I've got my periods and that is why my back is hurting or my stomach is hurting. It's always we just have to make an excuse you know so I went up to my teacher, and I the whole class was sitting there, and I was just talking to him generally about how I wanted to do a painting of a nude woman with vaginas and breasts, coming out like plants. And he asked me why did I want to do that, and I started explaining it to him. And I think he just thought that I'm a very open-minded person, and he just he started talking to me about masturbating. And I mean, he called me at his studio first, so I asked my dad to ring him up and thank him that he was helping me, so that he knows that my father knows. And I was sitting, I was living very far from home. I was living in another city, and this man, he just um, when I was in his studio, I went there for 2 days. Then another man who was living there, he committed suicide. So he started coming to my place. I asked my mother if he was my teacher. So I asked her if he could come, I don't know, once a week for an hour or two to help me with painting. And he started talking to me about masturbating and how it is okay to cheat on your spouse if your spouse does not know about it. and he started sending me videos uh, for videos in which women were talking about how nice it is for them to do nude modeling, and it got and I got very scared. I was anyway having a very difficult time there. I had no friends. And the only person I made friends with was a guy living downstairs, in a flat below mine. And I think he was doing drugs or something, and he had locked me from outside twice. So when when the woman who used to come do the cleaning and stuff for me, she had returned twice, and I had to call her up, and that's how I got to know that I was basically locked from outside my own home. Um, and it was
Oh
just
my God! Somya, I'm so sorry to hear this.
okay. I mean, I just
Like you
remember.
were too busy having to handle with all of this, so you
Yeah,
could not think about your work or think about creating a relationship with other women artists.
no work. The 2 years I did not do any work. When I was in school, I used to do a lot of paintings on my own. But when I got out of school, I was part of this rat race to get into a good university. And for every university in India, you have to take an entrance exam, and every entrance exam is different from, it is according to that place. And I didn't get through anywhere. The reason I didn't get through anywhere was because I was not from that state where I was applying. And so if I had a political connection, and I was actually asked by the principal, my father was asked by the principal to give him money so that, I could buy the seat. And I said
Oh
that
my
this is how I'm going to get into a university. So finally I got into a very shitty university in India. And then after 1 year of depression, uh, I was living on the seventh floor, and I used to stand on the balcony, and I used to think, if I jump from this balcony, if I'm going to, stay alive or not. I was in that state of mind. We don't have, um, people don't talk about mental health here. So I could not talk to my parents about what was happening. I had no friends. So talking to friends was also something that there wasn't, I did not have that option of talking to my friends as well. And on top of that, all of this was happening. And the first, when this man started talking to me like this, I don't know, I'm sure that all women go through some kind of sexual harassment in their life, you know. And I'm just going to share my thoughts with you, and I want to know if you felt the same way. Because my first thought was, how did I come to, this place? That
the
what
situation.
happened? And then my second thought was, it's my fault. Probably I did something, probably I said something that he started talking to me like that. And I don't know how many of you feel the same way.
Mhm. I think we all are, of course, with the cross of the differences of the culture, but we all are taught that we are, the fault is on us always. Like, even if something bad happens to us, uh, it's up to us. We did something, and of course, it's not your fault that the teacher did this awful
Yeah.
thing. Of course, and I imagine that you know, but it's always good to remember that it's not the women's fault when something like this happens. And just to close my speech, while you are talking, I about your time in university and about your relationship with your mom. I was thinking, I was crying, and I was thinking how difficult is for you or for your mom, I don't know, for an Indian woman to build her own identity, like a person, not for you as a daughter or for you as a future wife, but for
It,
Somya as an artist. Like,
it,
what do you want to do and these kind of things, because you have to handle with a lot of things coming from outside that simply don't let you to dream or thank God you are here now sharing your experiences and you know what you want to do at least.
I think personally, I feel that it is very difficult for women to have their own identity. And personally, for me, I feel that I was very fortunate. Um, I was always a very, I mean, I did not have a lot of friends. So I used to spend a lot of time reading books and, um, doing, I don't know, reading a lot of variety of books. And that increased my horizon. So I could dream. I always knew that there is more to life than just being like that. And my inspiration is actually my mother. I don't want to be like her. I don't want to be known just as a wife. My father, he runs his business. He has his school, and he wants me to join his school. But I feel that the reason I'm not joining it is because I want to have my own identity. I want to be known by my name, and not that it was very easy for me to, join my dad's institute and do whatever he was asking me to do. It just, I don't know how am I going to do that. Um, but ever since I've come back, I've been unemployed. I have no job, and people in India, especially because I've gone abroad and I've studied abroad. So people think that I should have a job, and they give me advice like getting married or being a primary school teacher. So it is difficult to that think about what I want to do. My identity has to be formed when a man is there. The other day I was talking to my grandma, my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother. Uh, I told her that if by the time I'm 30 and I'm not married, I would still like to have a child, because motherhood is something that personally I want to experience. And she said, but you won't have any respect. If I choose to be a single mother, I will not have any respect. And my sister-in-law, who's pregnant right now, my I have a, this woman who works in the garden for us, and she's been living here for the past 25 years now. So she really loves us a lot. She loves us like her own daughter. And she said, see how much respect your sister-in-law has earned just because she's married and her child is legitimate. I don't know why is a child illegitimate or legitimate. I've not understood this, because it's my body also, and it's not just a man's job to give the sperm. It's also, it's something growing inside of a woman's body, and it's her child as well. But if you look at it, it's always a man's name that the child takes. It is never the woman's name. In fact, we don't have our names. It's our father's names that we have. We don't have a mother's name. And in India, we have so many traditional wedding songs which say that um, once a woman is married, she cannot look back at her father's house. So basically, where once you're married, your parents, the door of your parents' house is shut. You don't have a place to stay, and hence women don't get divorced, no matter how abused they are. And it is really sad. I've seen this happening. I've seen people with a lot of money also, and people, and of course poor people, because an illiterate woman, it is difficult for her, of course, to you know um, get food for her, earn her living. So she always has to depend on her husband. And that is why a male child is very important in India. In India, you're not allowed to find out, when you're pregnant, you're not allowed to find out the sex of the child, because people kill female fetuses, they abort them. I think I should be just lucky to be alive, honestly.
I think that based on everything you're saying, which is it's very emotional. Everything I'm getting really, it's really touching. And I think you were saying, I think I heard you say that you didn't really know what to do now. But for me, that I'm seeing from outside, from my perspective, I think it's really, really obvious what you need to do. And I think because you had the courage to go back to India and stay there, even though all the things that are wrong with that and the culture and all of that, and you had the choice to just stay in the UK or go anywhere else, and you decided to go back to India. And I think that shows a lot of courage from your part. And so I think what you should do, and I think what you need to do, and maybe you feel the need to do, is really to spread your word out, and just share as much as you can the feminism, your own idea of feminism, of course, and how
I
you could adapt it.
In India, to spread feminism among women is much difficult than talking about it to women from other cultures, because women are not open to these. Mostly, women are not open to these ideas. Like, when I'm talking about a married woman dressing up and putting the powder, and there's a special necklace which I feel is like a collar. You give a collar to a dog, and then that dog becomes that. This is a pet dog. He lives in the house. A man does not have to do any of that, and you have to wear it to show that you're married, that you're owned by somebody, and then you're told that uh, it will affect the age of your husband if you don't take care of these things. uh, so I feel that talking about these things in India, like I gave you an example of me wanting to be a single mother, which was not taken very openly and by my mother and my grandma. So this shows that there is resistance in our culture to an extent that I don't know, it's difficult to talk to them about these
Mhm.
things.
And I think just by having that conversation with your grandmother and your mother, it's kind of an activism. It's a way of activism, I think, in what
Yeah,
concerns the feminism, right?
it's
Mm.
my life and I would like to live it my way, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hurt anybody, or don't want to hurt the
Uh,
society, but at the end of the day I have to think about my own happiness as well,
yeah, and I
because
think
I really don't
you,
want to
you need
be known as my father's daughter or my husband's wife.
Yeah. And I think it was a very brave move what you did about denying to work with your father in the institute. And I think it shows a lot of braveness. And I think it's a good step, you know, towards the what you wish to do. And what I was saying is, of course, you cannot try to do the feminism we have in Western, at least not alone and not in your lifetime, probably. But maybe those small steps is just like talking to your grandmother about being a single mom or any other kind of stuff, like the period, for example, you know, and talking to other people, and even your art, of course, it's very strong, you know. And I think those small steps are already, maybe at least they are getting people to talk about them, and which is something good, you know. People are thinking about that. And so I don't know, I think you are doing stuff in that sense,
Thank,
and I think you could continue doing. I don't know, I just wanted to give you like
thank you.
motivation. I don't know.
Can't imagine my life. I can't imagine myself not doing what I'm doing. And, you know, like I said, when I was introducing myself on the first day, uh, I had experiences where I felt very unsafe to express myself. So my work is the only way I express myself. And if I stop doing my work, I feel that I'm going to die. I really feel that very strongly. I mean, I'm
I
not
feel the same.
making up. I know that people, normally people think that I'm exaggerating, but I'm not exaggerating. I really feel that if this thing which I have brought with myself, you know, in Hinduism, we have this thing about birth and rebirth, and, you know, and I feel that when a person comes, they don't bring anything with themselves, and when they leave, they don't take anything with themselves. So this is the only thing that I have brought with myself, and when I'm going to leave, I'm going to take this from, you know, from the
your other
planet.
life. Yeah.
I'm not going to. I can't imagine myself giving up on this.
I feel the same way. I feel exactly the same way. And the thing you were saying before about people expecting you to paint landscapes and all those pretty things, I have the exact same experience. Not exactly in Lisbon, but in my hometown. And when I show the things I'm doing, and of course you do the things, but it's not only to be pretty. You do because you want to send a message. You know, for me it's more like the ecological side. Not, I think feminism is really important, and I read, and I'm very interested in the issue. In what concerns my art, I focus more on environmental stuff. But again, it's the same issue because people just expect you to do the landscapes and all of that. But what I mean is that I think we should keep on going, because at some point people are going to start to understand, or at least talk about it, you know, which is already good, I think.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
Yeah, Somya, I was just going to say, like, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. And it's been really wonderful to listen to your experience of making art and from your cultural context. I was very emotional when you were talking about your professor, and I didn't comment at the time, but it's never our fault.
Yeah.
And I know you know that, but I just want to reiterate that when you said that, I started crying. It's like never our fault. We didn't do anything.
I
But what
that
I
it is
wanted, oh,
parents'
sorry,
fault.
darling.
No,
Sorry,
sorry.
darling.
I'm sorry. I just feel that it is our parents' fault. They never teach us to, you know, they never teach us how to distinguish between a bad touch. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, I was not even 6 years old when a guy, he put his hand inside my shirt and he was feeling my breast. Um, and I could not tell it to my parents because I just did not know what to say to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel that somewhere we are being taught that, um, and then the other thing is, in India, people just say, "Oh, this is something that is common. This keeps on happening." This is what they say. Small issues like this, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't teach us that these small issues, they kind of turn into bigger issues like rape and molestations, bigger forms of these small touches. I was about 12 years old, and I was in New Delhi, in a very old part of New Delhi, and I came out of a Sikh temple and I was crossing the road, and this man, he just looked at me and he flashed, he flashed himself at me, and I didn't know how to react or what to say. I mean, I was just blank for that time because I didn't know what happened. If our parents don't teach us, if the school does not teach us, and this is not our parents' fault or the school's fault, this is how the culture is.
But I think when I was saying, like, are you connected to any of these like groups? I'm not specifically saying LGBTQ, I'm saying networks of progressive thought or whatever. It's not to say you should be, but it's something that I think would be very helpful. Like, I think that talking to other women or progressive people, this is the thing that makes me feel less alone and less isolated, and you have this connection with us. Like, I'm here if you ever want to call me up and just scream about how shitty you're, I'm here for that anytime. But I do believe, I think I have seen that there are some networks in your country. Like, I've seen some things emerging, and I'm not saying that to criticize or suggest that you should be, but it's something that I feel like listening to you would be very, very helpful.
I think I will be. I've just come back from the UK, and I think I came back in August, and then in December my grandmother passed away, and my grandmother was the only person she was actually a feminist. That woman was dynamic. She was independent till the last day. She was 85 until the last day she went to work. She had her own school, and she used to go every day in the morning, no matter how the weather was. Even if it was raining or it was very cold, she used to go every day, and she used to reach there before all the staff. So she was she was the one who used to protect me, and she was the one who used to encourage me. And she suddenly passing away, I just it was I still feel very helpless because half my battles were, uh, you know, they were fought by her, with my parents or with the society. Financially, I have never asked my father for money. My father did pay the fees and stuff, but then I never had to, if I wanted something, maybe some new clothes or material for my work, I used to always go to my grandmother. And ever since she's gone, I'm just, I feel like this protection has been lifted off me. And there's nobody to understand what I'm doing. And even she used to not really understand. But encouragement is not always financial. It is, you have to encourage the person financially, yes, but also motivate them by, I don't know, looking at their work or maybe trying to talk to them about it or whatever. So, yeah, being left alone like that, and it was very sudden. So, I just didn't do anything, honestly, Ruby. When I came back, I was working in an NGO for drug addicts, and alcoholics, and doing art therapy for them, which was very fulfilling for me. I was volunteering there. But people just don't understand that money does not always get happiness. Or probably I don't have to think about money because I've been born in a family which is quite well off. But still, I've had other troubles, if not troubles with money. And everybody has that. I mean, you will always have some obstacle or the other that you need to take care of. So yeah, and now this happened.
Well, we're here, Somya, until you find a community more local, and even after you find a community more local. Like, we are here. I'm sitting at home, literally sitting at home. If you want to, I know the time difference is a bit difficult, but if you want to chat about art or periods or whatever, like, we're all here.
It was
Yeah, of
very
course. And I think now with all this pandemic and everything, people are realizing that the meetings are, I don't know, meetings are being more and more online. So
yeah.
we can continue this forever.
As long as the virus lasts.
Exactly.
Seems like forever.
I'm just going to take a screenshot.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything. It was really important. I was recording everything just in case, I don't know, if we can, maybe we can translate some parts or something like that, if it's okay.
Yeah.
We can, yeah, we can talk about that. And yeah, here we are. Anytime if you want to talk more or propose or anything. I was thinking like what kind of things we can do, to, I don't know, like creating these spaces or I'm starting to cry as well. Oh my gosh. I don't know, like if you feel like if the Western people can do something that can maybe connect, somehow with people from India, just let us know. And another idea I had that maybe when lockdown is over in India, if you could like offer a kind of art workshop for women, just to have some women around, and then making this a moment to share some things and talk about some things, with the excuse of making some art stuff. That could be a nice idea, maybe. Don't know how you feel like.
Work with, there's an NGO close to my home, and they have adult women, I think, who are widows and working women, divorced and widows. So I wanted to work with them, but at the moment it is just not possible, and I don't know how else can I reach them. So yeah, I had plans, but the thing is that my timeline at the moment is, it was not working according to the pandemic. I came back from the UK, and in the UK I did last thing that I did was a 5-week workshop, I think, with refugee women there. And then I came back here. Um, I was busy at the National Museum. I had an internship there for 2 months, which was a very bad experience again. And then coming back, so when I came back, I started having these experiences, very unpleasant experiences. And then all of a sudden, my grandmother passed away, which was just, it was difficult. So
And just like wanted to incentivize you to like applicating for open calls, um, and and let's sell your art so you can have a lot of money and have a nice house by your own.
yeah.
And what you were saying makes sense, because that thing about starting like a small workshop with any kind of women, it's a good way of starting. Even the kindergarten that you were saying, the school that you said you didn't want to go, and I understand, but still,
It was,
I worked. What was it then? Uh,
uh, Middle school is basically teenagers,
okay,
So
but
no teenagers.
okay. No, I understand that it's difficult, but what I mean is that maybe those places where you might not see the potential of the experience, and maybe even starting in those places, even if you're not doing art or anything, but just by those small conversations you might have with the students, with the teenagers in this case. I don't know. It's
I
it's really scary. I understand, but
I
it
tried
might be a way of starting.
I tried working actually. During when I was a student in the UK, I came back for my summer break here, and I was teaching in India's best school, which happens to be in my city. It was an all-boys school, and the thing is that in India, how things work are very different. How teaching works in India and how teaching works abroad is very different. So, a teacher abroad probably goes to school from 9 to 5 or whatever timings. But in India, you are going to the school for whatever time, working hours, and after that, also you have to keep working. So, if I go to a school or if I start with a job, I will not have the time to explore my own work. And it is anyway, being motivated in such a place is anyway very difficult. So you have to keep doing things to self motivate. Um, and if I start teaching or get into any other field, then I don't know. That is why I am looking for platforms which are abroad one, because I had applied to a lot of places in India, but I never. They don't even get back to you. They don't even email back to you. That is the problem. So you know, I really don't want to have such heartbreaks anymore. I want to keep on working, and I want to concentrate on my work and explore whatever I am doing without thinking of uh, stuff.
Well, in Duna, you and your work will always be welcome.
Thank you.
We know that we are not that big and we cannot offer you too much, but it's what we can offer, and you could
Don't
join us
say,
whenever you want.
don't say that. I think uh, small things make up big things. I always think that. So I'm very happy and I'm very grateful for you to give me this opportunity and have this talk. It was wonderful.
Thank you for sharing your life experience and for being that open and sincerely. It's like it changed my life really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is okay. We can finish. So I wanted to say like thank you very much. So good to have another perspective of life and to know.
Coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, let's keep in touch. And if we can help, like sending open calls to each other, there are like these grants around the world. Like we can just stay in touch to send to each other.
I was wondering if we could maybe we can talk later with you, Somya, but join the same group with invite more women to come in the next month, maybe like in the
Yeah.
next round of Duna. So
Sure.
we with Margarida and Jordana and Marina could come back and talk again with more women if you
Yeah.
feel like doing it.
Yeah,
Would be
sure.
like a way,
Yeah.
would be a way for you to express yourself and show your work.
Yeah.
We can talk about. And Margarita, thanks to
Thank
you
you.
for coming.
So much.
I hope we see each other again.
Yes. And I would like to know more about your project. Then you have to send
Oh, of
me.
course, we can talk
Yes, I'm
about it.
curious. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I
you,
have
Ruby.
just a question. Somya, how did you find Duna project?
The open call Facebook page.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Great. Cool. Good. So we can know if we are doing right.
Yeah.
Where can I find you?
On Instagram, it's called
Okay.
Project Duna,
I will write it
and
down.
Please
and
excuse
there
me.
we can talk.
My mom is calling me. She's at the door. I'll just speak to her.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby, for coming. I'm really, really willing to see what you're going to write. Thank you, Jordana. Thank you, Marina. Obrigada, meninas. Amo vocês. Natasha, thank you.
Obrigada.
I cried a lot. I'm very, very emotional, and like I'm waiting for my period. I'm really PMSing, so I was just crying, and I'm just like hoping that I got my period. Like, please arrive here now. I can't take it anymore. Like, I can't take it. So
Vai
thank you
descer.
for. Vai
descer essa
caralho.
tarde. Com a força da matilha. The power of woman together. We'll make it come.
Please. Thank you all for being here and sharing and listening. It was really, really, really powerful and very special.
Very generous of Somya. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Nice to see you all.
Can we
Obrigado.
go? De nada.
Obrigada. Ciao.
Ciao.
I'm like feeling bad to go out without Samya. Like
Yeah. Girls, I just wanted to say I was thinking it would be there she is.
Then she can.
I was thinking it would be really cool, like just when Somya was talking at the end about work and focusing on her own work versus having a job. I think it would be really cool to have another conversation, like open to women about that, because I think that's like a hyper important topic that I think a lot of us struggle with is like, you know, I mean, I'm from a working class background. So, you know, I've always had to work and like thinking about how that's like affect, you know, like I just thought like that's such a big topic. And I think it might also be interesting to think about, I think all of these methods of work are also going to change
Yeah.
now because of sort of safety measures and stuff like that. Like I don't know what teaching is going to look like. I'm a teacher also, Somya, and like I don't know what teaching is going to look like in 6 months time, you know, like I'm used to having like groups of 15, 20, 25 students in a room together, and I don't think that's going to be a possibility for, you know, a really long time. So anyway, if people are interested, I would
Yeah,
love
it's
to
a nice
about
topic. Great topic for next conversation, like how to think about strategies of working. And like one good news is that I think we are starting to feel that we need to do this kind of remote work, which is good to, for creating these connections. For example, like I never thought we could reach Somya, for example. I think like my life, if besides the, like thanks to the virus, we are here all meeting together. So this is a good way to think, and how to do it in a sustainability way, like sustainable way, like how, where we can get support from who, like maybe now it's not only art grants, but also human rights grants as well. Like we need to think about these strategies. So it would be really interesting to do maybe a topic about like just conspirating about strategies of for new words, new ways of working.
I'm very much interested in, you know, working abroad. One, because in India we don't have grants for arts. Even if we have, then it's usually for people who have already been living in India, which is kind of, it is, I don't know what to say. My father took a loan. He had to take out a loan to educate me, you know, for 2 years. And now when I'm back, I'm not allowed to have any Indian scholarship for my
Because you
master's.
studied abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is very competitive. And the competition is dirty, you know, it is not a fair competition. That's the
Yeah,
problem. I don't want to be unfair, and, you know, I just don't want to be in that rat race
I have
again.
a question. Like if you, I don't know, dreaming right now, dreaming mode on, okay? If someday we could do like Duna offline, maybe in Mexico, as Ruby was inviting us to go to a place where she imagined creating like a cultural organization. Maybe someday if we could do Duna offline, you could travel to work with us there, like in another country.
in like
Or
5 years.
like if we invite you to go live abroad with us, and then we live by art and we work all together.
And we have our babies, and
Yeah,
we can
without getting married.
yes.
No, but would you be able like to travel to
If
work?
I have money, then yeah, I'll be
Okay,
able.
good to know. We have
Hey,
to
great.
get this money,
We're
girl.
gonna get this money. Yeah, let's map the money. We're gonna, yeah, we are always looking for that. So we,
Yeah, like I before I was already wanting to do like Duna offline and imagining, oh, how good it would be, but now it's like I have the dever, como que é dever?
obligation.
I have the obligation to make it offline and to have Somya like side by side with me.
Yeah,
It's my
I
dream.
really want to do something like that. I mean, and really something for women, especially.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good for women. Like, I always remember the time when I was traveling in India alone, and sometimes I had to take night buses from one city to another, and sometimes I was the only person on the bus driver, the
Yeah.
conductor, and just me. It used to be very scary, and I want women to have these opportunities, because somewhere women are working harder than men.
Yes.
Men don't have to worry about getting raped.
Right.
Yes, getting mugs is another thing. Money is another thing, but this bad feeling which connects with this when somebody touches you without your consent. I don't want, that to happen to other women. And yeah, support them in some way, no matter where they are.
Totally.
Let's
Totally.
please think about something to do and
We should
Yeah.
ah!
God, someone just sent me a message this morning saying quarantine in Mexico is lasting until the end of October. And I was like,
Damn.
I don't know.
How is the coronavirus out there, Somya? For
yeah,
you?
what are your numbers are getting high, right? Or
It is rising. Not only the virus is rising. I am on the border of China, and we are
And
at war with China, so that is also, and I mean, India is not handling it very well. People themselves, if they are not concerned about their own health, even the government can't do anything. And the government is not doing anything anyway, just taking our money, and I don't know where it is going. I did not give any donation to the Prime Minister care, like the government care. Instead, whatever I wanted to give, I gave to the private NGOs, like, because that was better. I at least know where my money is going. And the government, we just don't know where the government is using the donations. So, plus,
take care if you have to go outside.
oh
Like
yeah,
use
I'm
mask.
not going. I mean, I have a big place to stay at, at home. So it's okay for us, people like us. But yeah, I'm not really going out anywhere anyway.
Good.
okay, ladies, it was
Thinking.
lovely to see you guys. Let's have another call.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we will.
Take
Think,
care.
take care. Take care. See you.
Bye.
See you guys.
Take care, girls.
Bye. I'm off.
Bye.
You are in the bathroom. Okay. Somya, thank you
Bye.
so
Thank
much
you
for
so
your
much.
time.
It was amazing.
I really wish we could talk like for a long time. I have a lot of questions and that I don't know in which way to put my words. And but like whenever you want to talk, if you want to talk to me, feel free. I will be here.
Thank you. I mean, if you have any questions or if you want to do another talk like that, I am up for it. I feel that sometimes when we talk about our own stories in this way, then it encourages other women to know that they're not alone, and
Yes,
do something about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
thank you for the proposal and for everything. You are amazing. I'm already a fan. I'm saying this to you since the day we received your proposal.
Yeah.
Really, really, I really like your work and
Yeah.
I really like your speech. Please don't stop making your art.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'll see you people soon
See you.
on on my takeover now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I can wait.
Yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but yeah.
Don't
Don't
be.
be nervous. And if you want to us to translate something to Portuguese, so more people could relate with your posts on Instagram, you can send us your tests or your descriptions of your posts, and we translate it.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
nice. Thank you.
Hey,
Bye.
thank
Bye
you. Bye. Take care.
Bye.